What's going on? It's Greg here, and in this little short video, I'm going to teach you how to get crazy strong on seated dumbbell shoulder presses. In fact, on a recent Instagram post, I did 100-pound dumbbells per hand for 8 reps, and I had a ton of people ask me, how the hell can I lift that much at 170, 175? You know, how's that possible? How can they gain strength too? And why am I lifting so much weight? And here's the deal. There is so much misinformation in the fitness industry, it blows my mind. And I've fallen for a lot of it years and years ago. People make things so complicated. And one of my core teachings here, and really my core philosophy, and the reason why KinoBody's exploded so much, is because I cut through so much of the bullshit and get down to the truth of what actually works. Bruce Lee, you know, he's someone that I completely admire. And one of his most powerful quotes in my eyes was, "Simplicity is brilliance." And people forget that. You know, everyone wants to make things so complicated because then it is sexy. But ultimately, the most effective thing you can do is to simplify your life and simplify your training. And so what I've learned when I set myself the goal to build an amazing physique by my standards, maybe not your standards, comes down to a few things. Getting stronger on key movements is really 80% of building your physique as far as muscle size. That's the most important thing ever. If you're strong on the key movements, your physique is gonna look solid. Combine that with maintaining a low body fat, you're gonna look incredible. And one movement in particular I think is extremely powerful is the seated dumbbell shoulder press. I also really like standing overhead barbell overhead presses. The only problem with that is when you're maintaining a very lean weight. You know, it takes so much stability and core strength to do them. So a lot of times you might get limited. You might not be able to progress because, you know, your core is kind of shot. This is especially true when you're lifting above your body weight. So you can make good solid overhead pressing gains, and then once you get to a certain point, it becomes very hard. For me, that was, you know, when I was pressing over more than, you know, my own body weight. So for that reason, I love the seated dumbbell shoulder presses, and they work the shoulders incredibly well. And as you get stronger in this movement, you know, for the 5-10 reps, your shoulders will grow massively. Combine that with a lot of lateral raises, rear delts, rest pause style, you'll build these beautiful fucking shoulders naturally. So, how do you make crazy gains on shoulder presses? Well, here's the first problem that everyone makes. Everyone does, just like I talked about earlier with simplicity, everyone does way too much training. They want to train 5-6 days a week. They want to do 8 exercises per workout, 4 sets each, and they're blasting themselves with way too much volume. Now that will work if you are using drugs. Then you can make strength gains with tons and tons of volume, and volume is basically the amount of exercise sets and reps you do. The more exercises, the more sets, the more reps, the more volume you're doing, the less volume you're doing. So that can work if you're blasting yourself with drugs, or if you're eating at a huge calorie surplus, so you're gaining all this fat with the muscle. But if you're doing it naturally and you want to stay lean, you can't train that much. You can't. And I've had hundreds of thousands of people embrace my teachings, go from training 5-6 days a week down to 3 days per week, and have seen better strength gains and better muscle development. That's the fact. But don't just take my, you know, word as the voice of God. Test it, try it out for yourself. See if it's true. When you train 3 days a week on non-consecutive days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, your nervous system has a lot of time to recharge. Now, for people who have watched my videos for a long time, they know this. We'll get to some new stuff very soon. So that's the first step, is train less. 3 days per week max. Have that day of rest in between, and dial your training back. It's very difficult to go into the gym and try and hit a personal record, get another rep or lift more weight on shoulder presses or any exercise when you have 8 exercises to do and tons of sets. You're burnt out. Your main priority is trying to survive the workout, not get stronger. So when you dial your training volume down per workout, where you're doing 4 to 5 exercises per workout, just a few sets each, longer rest periods, now you can actually lift heavier weights. Now you can make progress. Now you can gain muscle, because if you're not able to progress in your workout, you can't gain muscle. And what's amazing is I've actually found from my own experience that when you actually follow this lower volume approach, you can actually gain, it's easier to gain muscle without fat. You know, when you're doing tons of volume, it's very difficult to handle it without eating tons of calories. So this style of training, when you do less volume, it's actually easier to gain muscle and stay lean, or gain muscle when you're cutting, because you actually have a nice amount of volume you can recover from. You're not, you know, overstretching yourself. You know, you only have so many adaptational reserves, so if you're doing too much, it's impossible to get stronger. So those are the first 2 steps. Train 3 days a week, drop your training volume down, and in my Greek God program, which probably a lot of you are familiar with, we're doing a 2-day split, because the first step to building an amazing physique is to make as fast progress on your incline bench press and your weighted chin-ups as possible. And to do that, we're doing a 2-day split. We're hitting, you know, workout A, chest, shoulders, triceps on one day, and then the workout B, we're doing back, biceps, legs. The only problem with that is as you get more advanced, it's very hard to make shoulder press gains when you're doing it after incline press, which is how it's set up in the Greek God program. So that's an amazing program. It's like the fastest way to make like serious strength and muscle gains when you're beginner, intermediate, but then the shoulder press can kind of stall. Not everyone experiences this. I definitely experienced it to a certain degree. So that's why I teach a lot of the 3-day split where you're having a shoulder, so you're doing three workouts a week. On Monday, you might do more chest, some arms, and on Friday you might do more shoulders, a little bit of back and arms, and then on Wednesday you train legs. So this has really helped me build a lot of shoulder press strength, is having 2 upper body workouts a week, 1 leg day, and then on 1 upper body I do a lot more chest focused with some arms. On the other upper body day I do a lot more shoulder, back with a little bit of arms. And it works really, really well because I can hit the shoulder presses completely fresh and really, really make strength gains. Now the other tip is to rotate between seated dumbbell shoulder presses and standing barbell overhead. When you do the same exercise for several weeks on end, you're gonna inevitably plateau. It has to happen. Otherwise, people will just keep making strength gains until they're shoulder pressing fucking cars, and that does not happen. So to circumvent this issue, you need to challenge yourself with new exercises every 4 to 6 weeks, which is really what works perfectly for me. So I might do standing barbell overhead presses for 4 to 6 weeks. Then when I get burnt down, I start to plateau, because when you do the same exercise for a long time, it actually creates a lot more central nervous system fatigue. So when I start to plateau, what I do is I swap the movements and I go to seated dumbbell shoulder press, and I do that for 4 to 6 weeks, and I consistently make PRs. And then when I plateau, I go back to the overhead barbell, and I do this, and it works amazing. And when I train on shoulder presses and a lot of my exercises, I'll do reverse pyramid training, where I'll do 3 sets, a heavy set, a medium set, and a lighter set. And every set I go down about 10 to 15% with full rest periods. This way you're training that heavy set fresh. You don't have to do it once. You can give everything you have into it. So when I go to the gym, I might do a couple warm-up sets. I'll hit 100-pound seated dumbbell shoulder presses. I'll go for a PR, rest 3 minutes, then I'll go down to 85, 90. Then I'll rest 3 minutes. Then I'll go down to 70, 75. And I'll finish off there. And so every set's lighter. So when you only have to do 1 really heavy set, it's much easier to mentally push yourself to hit the PR. But if I had to do 3 sets with 100 pounds, I wouldn't be hitting PRs. I'd be just trying to handle doing 3 sets with 100 pounds. And so that doesn't work very well. So the reverse pyramid training is incredible for strength gains. And furthermore, by doing your heavy set first, you instigate and you create this state of enhanced muscle fiber recruitment. So when I do 100 pounds, my muscles are used to firing the amount of muscle fibers to lift 100 pounds. When I go down, when I go down to 85, 90, it feels light. And that allows you to fatigue more of your muscle fibers on the lighter set. So by training that fashion, you experience better strength and better muscle gains. And so when you train that way, the idea is you have a rep range on seated dumbbell shoulder presses. So for your first set, you might be going for 6 to 8 reps. On the second set, you go for 8 to 10. On the third set, you might go for 10 to 12. And so on all 3 sets, when you hit the high end of the rep range, for example, 8 reps, 10 reps, 12 reps, the next week you go up 5 pounds. This works very well. Now you might want to do 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, or you might want to do 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10. All those 2 different setups work very well. Another really awesome way to progress on shoulder presses is actually to use a weight that's too heavy for you. Use a weight that's too heavy for you. So for the first few workouts, you only come down to here. You come down to here. And then every week that you try and come down a little bit lower, a little bit lower. And so maybe after a month, you might do a weight that you could only go here. Then after a month, you're going down here. That's an amazing way to progress on dumbbell shoulder presses. And I've used that extensively with seated dumbbell shoulder presses and incline dumbbell bench press. I love that style very much. So these are a few tips to help you hit those 100-pound seated dumbbell shoulder presses. And again, I train with an intermittent fasting setup, so most of my workouts I'm either completely fasted, haven't eaten anything, but I get some caffeine before, which actually boosts workout performance, or I'll just have like a banana or something light before I train. This works best for me. I get my most intense workouts relatively in a fasted state. And yeah, those are some tips to help you hit the 100-pound dumbbell shoulder presses. Now, if you're looking for a program that's really programmed to achieve this and works in line with the 3-day split using the the reverse pyramid training on the main key movements and the rest pause training on a lot of the accessory stuff, then I would encourage you to check out the Superhero Bulking Program. It's an amazing routine. There's 4 phases in it. My 2 favorite phases are the shoulder phase, which is incredible at building a lot of strength and size in the shoulders, and the arm phase for filling out your arms. Right now I'm actually going through the arm phase and it's working really well. I'm bringing my biceps up. And yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. Now, an important note is that, everything we talked about, this will work a lot better if you're not in a diet, if you're not in a big caloric deficit. When you're dieting and you're losing weight, it's harder to make strength gains. But when you're eating to maintain your weight or slowly gain weight, it's much, much easier and more manageable to gain strength. Anyways, guys, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.